What's up and welcome back to the Metalhead Car Show. People love legacy sports cars, and people always kind of want manufacturers to bring legacy sports cars back into their lineup because it's just things they love. And every now and then they do. We've got cars like the Lamborghini Countach, the Bugatti EV10 SS, the Toyota Supra come back from the dead. So I'd like to talk about 10 cool cars I'd like to see come back from the dead. So let's get right into it. 10th place, the Subaru Baja. Now, the Subaru Baja was a ute that was made on the Subaru Legacy platform, and it was made within these years. Now, I think it'd be a really smart move to bring the Baja back because they're pretty cool. Like, they're kind of culty at this point, but they're pretty cool. And the mini truck market's actually coming back. We've had things like the Ford Maverick and the Hyundai Santa Cruz. So, since this market's back and these cars are selling, it would make a lot of sense for Subaru to bring this back right now. Things I would kind of do differently, I would make an STI version of it. I think that's one thing they kind of lacked in. I've seen some people do it in the aftermarket. They've just been really, really cool cars. And I wouldn't give it the Pontiac Aztec two-tone yellow and silver paint jobs. Good paint. STI, call it there. And a manual. For the love of God, give it a manual. In 9th place, the Porsche 928. Now, the 928 was brought out in 1976, and its original purpose in life was actually to replace the 911. Obviously, that never happened, and the 928 lived from 1979 to 1996, I think, or this year. I think it wouldn't be too hard to do this. They already have a front-engine V8 platform, being the Panamera. So I think it wouldn't be that hard to really shorten the frame and kind of give it a bit more of a 928 look to it. Now, I remember from many years ago reading through like a Motor Trend or Road and Track magazine that there was going to be a car called the Porsche 960 coming out. From what I remember reading, it was going to be essentially a new 928, being front engine V8 and whatnot. Ended up being a mid-engine V8 car that's going to be an in-between of like the Hyundai 911 and the 918 Spider. And it's going to use the 918 Spider engine, just minus the hybrid system, so it's going to make about 660-ish horsepower. And that never came out, and I think it was years before Porsche kind of showed off the prototype clips for it. But I think a 928 would be a really cool addition and just something that Porsche hasn't done since the 928. So I think it'd be cool to see. I don't think it'd be crazy hard to make. And I think Porsche releasing a rear-wheel drive V8 coupe would actually sell pretty well at this point. 8th place, the Honda CRX. Now the CRX lasted from about 85 to 93-ish. And it was the small, sporty, kind of hatchback version of the Civic at the time. And Honda tried to recreate this magic with the CRZ back in 2011. But it just didn't quite have the power. It didn't quite do it. They're kind of culty, they're kind of cool, but it just didn't quite do it at the time. But at this point, we have the Nissan Z, we have the Supra out and being really driven towards a enthusiast car. We have the GR86 that's doing really well. We have the GR Corolla and Yaris that's doing well. We have the Integra out, which kind of flopped, but it's back, take it as you will. And there's just kind of this really cool JDM renaissance happening right now. So I think if Honda were to bring back a CRX, now would be a beautiful time to do it. So what I would do, I'd get the current Civic, make it a two-door, really just sort of squish it down, make it a short wheelbase two-door hatchback, and kind of give it some of the CRX styling cues from the early 90s. And truthfully, I'd just sort of make it an appearance package and give it every single engine option that the standard Civic has. So to give it like an SIR, which will be the Type R engine in this small little hatchback, but also give it the standard entry-level options that you can buy with any Civic. Also with this car, it being just smaller, you're getting less, and there's less materials being used to make it. In theory, it should be cheaper. So if that was like the entry-level Civic, I think that'd be really, really cool. But let's be real about it. I'm sure Honda would make a big deal about the CRX name, and suppose it being $3,000 less, it'd be $3,000 more per model. And the first generally weird pick on the list, in 7th place, the Pontiac Fiero. So anyone who knows a lot about the Fiero will understand why this is kind of a weird pick. Because A, Pontiac's not a brand anymore. B, the Fiero wasn't loved, and C, the small two-door mid-engine sports car market kind of is dead. So here's why I think it would work. GM was able to bring back Hummer under the GMC name, even though Hummer's been dead for years. So despite Pontiac's been dead since about 2010, I think they could bring that back under the Chevy name, but maybe put like 1 or 2 Pontiac badges here and there to kind of show, remember where it came from. And that would kind of make it so it could actually be sold. Secondly, it's branding. I think if you made this and put the Chevy Cruze engine in it, it would be passed off as kind of this piece of crap nobody would buy. But if you made it this small two-door stylish kind of EV car that wasn't super fast but had a decent range and was quick and peppy, I think that would actually sell really well. And to kind of prove that I'm not that crazy, only that much, Toyota's already working on this. When Toyota released spy shots of like the 30 some odd EV prototypes they were working on a while ago, there was a small two-door mid-engine looking thing that would resemble a modern MR2. So if Toyota believes that this could work, why couldn't a Fiero work? And if GM can make it decent at everything and keep the cost down, this thing would sell like absolute hotcakes. The Fiero is definitely the most controversial car on this list, but I generally think at this point in time it would work. So in 6th place, and truthfully the most iconic car in this list, the Ferrari F40. So Ferrari will make retro-styled cars for people if they're willing to pay the extra money, but they've never been known to really bring back cars from the dead. Like the only time they've ever done that was for the California back in 2009. Other than that, it's really never happened, especially with a legacy car like the F40. So at this point, there's kind of a lot of people who actually pay a lot of money for kind of these niche, low production supercars, as long as they work, unlike some of the McLarens. So what I would do, I would start with the 296 GTB. I would completely gut it. I would up that engine to about 1,000 horsepower, but it's already making well over 800. And I would manual swap it, which may be easier said than done, but if they had a manual 1,000 horsepower, track-focused, wide-body, giant spoiler Ferrari at this point, there's no way that wouldn't sell. And seeing how crazy people are getting for gated manuals, I think if they put a gated manual in this car, they could probably up the price by about $30,000 because the market's completely insane. I was going to say it's probably the least likely car in this whole list to actually come back into production, but seeing as though Ferrari's making an SUV, I wouldn't wipe it off the table. I think they have kind of a new thought process to making cars, and who knows, maybe it's possible at some point in the future for it to actually happen. In 5th place, the Cadillac Cian. Now, the Cadillac Cian came out in 2002 as a prototype, right when Cadillac was trying to change its image to look a bit more younger, a bit sharper, cooler, just more sporty. So the Cian was this incredibly sharp, super aggressive looking V12 supercar that made like 750 horsepower that I think still looks really, really good for its time. And I've always kind of wondered why it never came out. But truthfully, when you read the words Northstar V12, it becomes blatantly obvious towards why it never came out. That engine would have been a complete piece of crap. The entry-level gutless Northstar engines are crap, so there's no way a 750-ish horsepower V12 would have been slightly reliable. I refuse to believe that. And also at that time, there was no mid-engine platform it really could have used, so it would have cost GM a fortune to actually bring this into production. But as we know, that side of things has changed. Ever since Chevy brought out the C8 Corvette a couple of years ago, the conversation for the Cian fired back up. There's now this mid-engine platform in GM's roster that Cadillac could use to actually make this car. So what would I do? I would get the Corvette, make it kind of look like the Cian, but modernize it towards where Cadillac is now. Make the interior nicer. Get whatever engines can be going into the either the ZR1 or the Zola. I'm not really sure what it's going to be called yet. But get that engine, up it a little bit, which Cadillac's kind of been doing with a lot of the LS2s and LS3s and whatever. And then make that the Cian. And yes, it wouldn't have the V12 the Cian did back in 2002, but it'd be making more power, it'd be more reliable, it'd be way less money to actually make, which would also help it to actually come into production. So there's really no downside to it. 20 years ago, this would have never come out. Now, it's a way different story, and who knows. In fourth place, the Dodge Little Red Wagon. So the Little Red Wagon was kind of Dodge's sports truck of, I think, the late 1970s. So it'd be kind of neat to kind of see this come back. They already have the TRX, which is its off-roading vehicle. It's 707 horsepower off-roading vehicle. So the Little Red Wagon was Dodge's kind of sports truck of the late 1970s. And I think if they were to bring it back, they would need to kind of run with that platform or that mindset of making the truck. So don't make it an off-roader like the TRX, because the TRX is already doing that very well. So make it a short wheelbase, short cab drag truck. Use the Challenger 1320 setup with the launch control and whatnot, and kind of run with that. Give it nice tires, give it brakes, actually make it stop under that power, but do it that way. Now, I would say make it use a Hellcat engine, but the Hellcat engine isn't long for this world. So I think for this particular thing, the 1320 setup would be a lot better for it. Which is assuming it wouldn't use the new Charger Daytona EV setup. In third place, the Chevy Chevelle and Malibu. Now, the Malibu existed up to about 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And it was just kind of a pointy looking but bland rental car that none of us care about anymore. It'll be a $5,000 used car in a couple of years. But they did have the Chevy SS. And the Chevy SS was an absolutely brilliant car. But Chevy did such a bad job of marketing it that it was kind of a, if you knew, you knew. And it was so blandly styled that I parked next to one a while ago. And due to I'm the nerd I am, I knew what it was. But it looked like everything else. It wasn't special. So what I would do is use a larger four-door platform from the Cadillac, have a Malibu as kind of a six-cylinder entry-level option that's going to have some kind of neat features, maybe some more luxurious features, but keep it six-cylinder. And then have the V8 cars as the Chevelle. With the Chevelle, give it a V6 option, give it the appearance package, make some nice features in the interior, kind of call it there. With the SS, give it a naturally aspirated V8, probably the same one that's currently being used in the Corvette. Give the appearance package and make that the SS. And then, after that, get the supercharged 6.2 liter V8 that's currently being used in the Cadillac, shove that into the Chevelle, give it all the bells and whistles, and make that the ZL1. I think this would be a really cool way to do it, especially if they can get some retro stuff kind of fitted in there. But if they cost this right, and made it look the part, this thing would be absolutely wild. I'm not a huge GM fan, but sign me up for that. That sounds really cool. Not a huge GM fan. Proceed to put 3 GM cars on the list. In second place, the Lamborghini STK. Now the STK, which I really hope I'm pronouncing properly, was a 4-door sedan. Lamborghini brought out the STK as a prototype back in 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And it was breathtaking. It looked so good, and I think if Lamborghini used that body with some slightly modern touches, it would still work really well. But as we know, the Lamborghini Urus has Porsche Cayenne parts and Audi Q7 parts. And as we also know, there's the Audi Q-tron and the Porsche Taycan. So what I would do, go get that EV platform, put the Lamborghini body on it, make it a bit more powerful so we have the STK and like a Porsche Taycan RS kind of in the same category of power, and release it like that. Which that sounds really disappointing, it being a full EV Lamborghini, but also, unfortunately, I think that's kind of the way we're heading, and it'd be the easiest way to bring this car into production. So I think this would be a little bit of a hard sell. I think if they did this, the car would end up being like $350,000 to $400,000. And I think that's going to be a hard sell compared to the Model S Plaid, which is obscenely fast. But also, let's face it, Teslas are cheap. Not inexpensive, they're cheap. So I think for that reason, it'd be kind of a tricky one to do. But also, the ability to do it is there now. So I don't really think there's any excuses anymore. And the winner? The Acura Integra Coupe. Is this the one car on the list that I actually have some sort of hope for it actually coming out in the foreseeable future? We know Akira was using some coupe chassis to actually test the Integra. We know they exist. So why weren't they used? Now, I know the hatchback sedan platform is kind of one of the best-selling car bodies on the planet right now. That's why a lot of manufacturers are jumping to that, and that's why the Integra is that shape. I get it. But also, if you're going to make it, why not release it? Honda's not making any coupe Civics at this point, so they've opened up their own market. As I said before, the JDM renaissance is currently happening. Why not make it? Akira completely dropped the ball on this. Now, I may be beating a dead horse by saying this, but I stand by it. It was a complete mistake not to do it, and what we got was a peppy but bland car. Now, I know it's not a bad car. I've got to be in one. It's pretty nice. I know it's not slow. I've got to see some drag race footage of it. But honestly, let's be real. It got so much hate when it was first announced. And if they showed off that and showed off a coupe, I think everyone would have been fine with the hatchback sedan being released if they still got the coupe. And you have cars like the Mustang Mach-E, the Ford Bronco, and the AMG GT all using two separate chassis to make one kind of car brand. That happens, and it's going to become more popular as we go on. There's already talk of a SUV Corvette coming out. So, why? So that's my list. That's the end of the bitching and moaning for this day. I want to know, what do you think? What would you love to see come back into production? Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed what you've seen. I post on Instagram and occasionally TikTok, and I'll see you later.